I only get to do this once every year, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. But before we get started, number one, let me welcome all our new members and members that are here. It's good. I think I've talked to each one of you individually at some point, and glad you're here. Looking forward to working with you. Before we do official order, the first part, which would be, of course, electing the chair, we're going to do the pledge and a prayer, and then I've asked our attorney to be here to introduce himself to y'all, because I think during the fray he got to meet each one of you, but I want him to officially be able to introduce himself to y'all. I was going to say, new ones, this will be the first time meeting him, and the ones who have been here, I think you've probably only seen him a couple times, right? Yeah, and as Blake stated earlier, I mean, when you don't see the attorney, that's generally the good thing. So yeah, absolutely. So let's all stand, we'll do the pledge and then prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's all bow. Dear Lord, we thank you for this another beautiful day, the opportunity we have to be here together. Lord, we thank you so much for what this body represents. We pray that you will guide our hearts and our minds and help us to do what's in the best interest of our kids and the community. Lord, we thank you so much for all the many wonderful blessings that we so often take for granted. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Mr. Steve Shields.
Privilege it is to be here. Congratulations to the new board members. You got a huge job, a responsible job. Congratulations to each one of you. I know that there are some people that I've met before, but only a couple of times. And so it's hard to believe that I've been coming up here. The first time that I showed up at a Tipton County School Board meeting was, hold on to your hat, it's 1980. 1980 is the first time that I walked in this school. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my background with the school system, some highlights. And there's multiple purposes for talking about that in view of what I want to find out, what I found out on Tuesday that I'm going to share with you, okay? And so there's a couple of reasons. First off, when I first came up here, Hyde Williams was the superintendent. I handled a federal court lawsuit for him. We prevailed. Another one was dismissed. I then went with Dr. Fight, okay? Dr. Fight was here. Then these are kind of some highlights. Of course, we were involved in negotiations. Dr. Fight and the board and I got together and said, we're not going to let the board's authority be eroded. And we drafted the contract and negotiated the contract. It became the model, literally across the state, for other school systems. And in fact, I represented 34 school systems. They would send me their proposals, and I would revise them, and I would give them how they could respond to it. So I was deeply involved in those negotiations, and I actually put on seminars across the state. Then, of course, we got into, beyond that, a major piece of litigation. Unfortunately, one afternoon, a school board member contacted me and Dr. Fight, as he should have under the contract, and said, we've got a real problem. We have a school principal that, in fact, is asking some girls for a date on the weekend. And I went, well, that's not good. He goes, I guess I need to go ahead and suspend him. I said, wait, call the girls. Find out what's going on. Call the girls, and he said, oh, our boyfriends got their picture off of something, and they made this up. It was awful. So what occurred was this, is that at that particular point then, we suspended the kids, the 5 young men, sent them to the alternative school. We were sued for $5 million for violation of the First Amendment, because they said we had a First Amendment as a parody and all of that. And so I argued the case. Actually, on the way in, they said, you know, it's not about the money. I said, well, then drop the $5 million claim. They said, well, no, we're going to keep the $5 million. And so as a result, then I argued the case, had a hearing in front of Judge McCullough, and we prevailed. And so that got some news out there. At the same time, I was doing a number of audits for wage and hour across the state, and I was speaking across the state. Remember, I'm going to link this up to something else I'm going to tell you, okay? Is that then, after that, then what occurred is that Dr. Bibb comes in. And unfortunately, you may have heard about this, is that what occurred is Dr. Bibb calls me and says, we have a huge problem. said, what's that? He goes, my secretary walked out here about an hour and a half ago and said, Dr. Bibb, why did you want the social security numbers of all of our teachers and administrators, about 1,000? He goes, what? What are you talking about? So they went to the bad guys. So now we have a $19 million lawsuit. We immediately went into, within 2 hours, we had letters out, IRS, FBI, TBI, everybody in here to deal with it. But the federal court lawsuit was filed for $19 million. I argued the case in federal district court, had a hearing, argued the case, we won. They appealed to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I said, I'm happy here to be representing the Tipton County Board of Education. And we won the case in the Sixth Circuit. Then there was a state court lawsuit filed by another group of lawyers for $28 million. You gotta remember, we got 1,000 people now that are saying it was a breach of security. And so we tried that and did not have to try it. I won it on a motion, and we got that taken care of. And so I've spoken at I don't know how many different seminars. So now why am I telling you all this other than letting you know something about me, right? Is that I get a call one day from a California lawyer, and he says, Mr. Shields, we know about you. You represent a number of school districts across, particularly in West Tennessee and across that, and we represent, I represents more than just this one. And so as a result then, he said, we want you to be local counsel on a case that we're filing on behalf of school districts against Juul vaping. And so I said, really? I said, well, tell me more about this. And actually, I decided that we probably should get another firm involved in Middle Tennessee. I don't think you new board members know anything about this, do you? So I think this is brand new. And so, as a result, they asked me to be local counsel, first local counsel. I said, fine. And of course, you know who the first person was I called about the lawsuit, don't you? He's sitting to my right. And I said, let me tell you about the lawsuit. Social media has now got this vaping where these kids are getting, the flavor of the month and all of this. And it was just awful what the social media was doing. And so I said, look, I don't know if there's ever going to be any money out of this or not. They may file bankruptcy or whatever. Dr. Combs said something to me at that point that I will echo the scene. He goes, gosh, it's not about the money, is it? I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's about the health and the lives of our children. And so I started calling other people, and we got other people involved. And the fact is that what occurred at that particular point was that a number of school districts said, well, if there's not going to be any money in it, we're not interested. And I said, no, you don't understand. This is about the lives of your children. This is about the health of your children. And so we got involved, and of course I asked Dr. Combs to supply information to the California lawyers. Little did I know that Tipton County was the only school district that said actually a Federal Express box that they used to be a model for what was needed. So now what's my point, okay? Is that what occurred is we got the third check in, I think on Monday or Tuesday, taking it to $157,000 this school system has received. I have in front of me the estimate from the California lawyers that we're expecting the Tipton County school system will get $250,000. I suspect I know what that money is going to be used for. And so, hey, I wanted to tell you, it's really good news by the end of the year. And Dr. Combs, thank you. New school board members, fantastic to have you here. I'm glad to have you as my client, not him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, y'all, and by the way, let me add this, that was at no cost to the district, let me throw that in there, we didn't pay anything, they took all the, California folks took theirs, so we do want to continue to try to use that for, vape cessation, social worker stuff, I mean, that's what we're gonna use it for, and that was the lawsuit, so, that would be my intent, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more once, the rest of that money rolls in, but, the option is probably not to buy a bus with it or anything. We're gonna try to use it in the manner in which the lawsuit was presented against Jewel. I think part of it was too for basically them to stop doing what they're doing in advertising,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And so that was a big impact as well. So anyway, thank you, appreciate that. So at this time, I'm gonna open up the floor for nominations for chair and let somebody else take this thing over.
I nominate Blake Schenkel for chairman of the school board.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Matt McCann.
Any others? Okay, Ms. Renee, we're gonna do a roll call vote,
Okay.
and we'll just start by district. Do I have I guess first I need a second on Ms. Loretta's, I really don't, but I'm gonna give one since we got one on the other one. We have a second for Mr. Matt. Second, yes, no?
Can I second myself? I don't know. I'll second it.
Yes, I really don't need a second. Obviously, I checked with the attorney, but that's fine. Okay. All right, roll call vote. You
Okay,
ready? Just go by district?
by district. District one, Mr. Edwards.
Can you come back?
We can. District two?
McCann.
Ken, okay. All right, District three,
That's me. Blake Schenkel.
District four,
McCann.
District five, Mr. Lavelle.
Blake.
District six, Ms. Tingley.
Right.
District seven,
Blake.
District eight,
I'm sure both are great, but I'll have to abstain until I get to meet them.
okay, all right. District nine, Ms. Reed.
Blake.
And then.
All right, so
Mr. Dwayne.
Mr. Dwayne, Mr. Edwards.
It'd be much me for me to sustain.
Abstain?
Yes.
He's gonna abstain.
Okay.
All right. All right, congratulations, Mr. Schenkel.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations. I'm gonna turn it over to you. Yes, sir. So we need a vice chair and then a TLN rep? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we'll open up the floor for nominations on vice chair. We have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate, Ms. McCann.
I know we don't have a second, but do we have any other nominations?
I nominate Richard.
So we have Ms. Reed nominates Mr. Gray. Any other?
So we'll have a roll call.
Yep, roll call vote.
All right, so District one, Mr. Edwards.
Uh,
Mr.
Okay.
McCann.
yes.
All right, District two, Ms. Eubanks.
McCann.
District three, Mr. Schenkel.
Mr. Gray.
District four.
McCann.
District five,
Mr. Gray.
District six. District seven,
Richard.
District eight,
Mr. Gray.
District nine.
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray. Congratulations, Mr.
Congratulations,
Gray.
Mr.
If it's okay with you, we'll make seating adjustments at the next meeting.
That's
Is
fine,
that
fair enough,
cool?
absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
according to Mr. Combs, we'll make seating adjustments next week, or
Yeah.
next month, so.
That's
yeah,
good.
That'd
Yeah,
be
okay.
fine.
We should have everybody signed by then too, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Better than the paper one.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
this is not what we get, these
No,
are good, okay.
You'll
all
get a
right.
better one.
All right, let's see, so the legislative, right, is that,
Yes, sir.
can we get an explanation on that, or is that? Is-
So, to make sure I understand, TLN represents the group, in legislative matters when they go to the meetings, et cetera, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think before it was, I think Mr. Vincent was the legislative rep, is that right, for those of you who are here?
Okay, and they have to go places, or they just represent, is that? what-
Basically, at the meetings that you're usually there, and then they have a lot of things online, things they do in trainings,
Okay.
things like that, so it wouldn't be a whole lot of travel.
Okay, all right,
No, sir.
so we'll open up the floor for nominations for TLN.
I'll nominate if she'll take it, Lisa Reed.
So we have Mr. Reed as a nomination, do we have any other nominations?
I'm not sure if you accept it or not.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna nominate Mr. McCain.
No, I'm not interested in it.
Do we have any other nominations that are interested?
I promise it's not a bad, it's not a rough position, it's just.
I'll nominate Clay Lavelle, he'll take it.
Explain it to me.
So I think that you'd be basically on the listserv from TSBA, so they send you legislative updates, things like that. If there's anything pending that would be, a big interest to the group, that probably in a meeting, you kind of bring that up and kind of be the go-to on that, because you've been, in on those conversations. That's how I understand it.
And he'll report, or whoever would report that back to
At
the
the
board,
meetings,
is
yes,
that
sir.
correct? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
You accept Mr. Lavelle?
Is that a yes?
Give it a whirl.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second by Mr. Gill. We have any other nominations?
I'll just go ahead and move to cease.
Cease nominations. I assume we don't need a roll call vote on that one. All right, so congratulations, Mr. Lavelle, for TLN rep. All right, so we'll move to motion to approve the agenda as presented. So do we have the agenda, this agenda to correct today?
Yes,
So we
sir.
have agenda, you should all have agenda in front of you. Do we have take a look at it?
And it's also loaded on your devices that were sent in.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So they should have populated all that on our tablets as well, so take a look at that. Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Matt, Cam makes a motion, do we have a second? Second, any discussion? Who seconded? Mr. Jenkins seconded. We have any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? No? Motion passed. Do we have any additions to the agenda that we want to make? No additions? Does that take a motion? Is that, okay, no additions, all right. Do we have well, we got this consent agenda. Do we need to pull out anything of the consent agenda and discuss, or anything on the consent agenda?
The one thing looking through it on here, I'm curious as the assignments per school, why only one parent is included with 2 teachers and an administrator? I think
So
we
you're,
need to possibly get more input from outside sources than necessarily inside sources.
so Mr. Gray, you're talking about item E, first reading policy revision, no, excuse me, textbook adoption,
Correct.
number D, so we'll pull that out, is that correct?
Is
Dr.
that one-
Combs,
Is that one
textbooks adoption process, D is what I've got on mine.
or C? Which one is that?
C is,
I think I may have the old one on here. I got a calendar revision.
yeah, there was a revision on that, because I think it listed it twice.
I bet you, okay.
So we'll pull out section D for discussion. Anything else? I'd like to pull out section E as well for discussion. Do we have a well, do we discuss that? You have to help me on some of this. We discuss do we make the motion to accept the consent agenda?
Right, just go ahead and pull them out
And then
and
pull 'em
then
out.
vote on that, and then you can discuss the other ones afterwards, yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the consent agenda, is that
Yeah,
correct?
with the deletions.
With the
yes, sir.
deletions
Yes.
of the two items.
I'll second that.
Well, I need a first motion.
I'll make a motion to accept everything except what we pulled out.
All right, Mr. Gray makes a motion, we have a second? Second, so we'll discuss, at this time, we're gonna discuss, item D, textbooks adoption process. I think you can pull that
Did we
up.
vote on the consent agenda first, though? I mean, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Do we-
yeah, I'd go ahead and
So
say.
take a
all
vote,
in
do we have a
favor?
vote,
Yeah,
do we have any discussion? Any other discussion? I'm sorry, we'll work on parliamentary procedures as we get better. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion passed. We'll discuss item D, textbook adoption process for 2024-2025. Mr. Gray, you made the motion to pull that out. We'll have you to discuss at this point.
Yeah, my concern is a lot of administrators and teachers are involved in the selection of our textbooks. During my campaign, I spoke with a lot of people, a lot of parents are concerned, they want more input into this process. That way they have more knowledge of what's being taught to their kids that are in the school systems. Looking over it, I mean, every one of them's got 2 teachers, 1 parent, 1 administrator from each school, elementary, middle, and high. I'm wondering if we could possibly amend that to have a minimum. I think the parent ratio needs to match the teacher ratio. Cause I mean, the more input and more opinions we have going into the textbooks that's being taught to our kids in schools, the better off we're gonna be.
Well, let's talk about the process maybe of how that works. I mean, as far as the adoption process, is that?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Was that a question for Ms. Bird?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Bird, you please address. I'm sorry.
If you go to the Tennessee Department of Education, it outlines who can be a part of that committee. It doesn't give an exact number. That really hasn't been brought up before. I will say, to your point, Mr. Gray, we have the adoption samples out for parents to view, but I don't know that.
I mean, I think in our packet, we had a list that broke everything down, like the timeline, the schedule of how that goes about, and then how the meetings, board members are welcome to be at those meetings, they're recorded, you can go back and watch them. All the textbooks are on this state-approved list.
Correct.
I mean, so that everybody's aware of that.
I understand, in my personal opinion, I'm speaking for myself, everything that comes down from the state ain't always necessarily good. That's why I think more eyes on the situation, the better off we're gonna be. I mean, with the way things are now, I mean, the state does good and the state does bad on some issues, which, we'll get into that later. Now, the approval that you're talking about, Matt, is that once everything's already approved, then parents can review it, or?
No, it was in the packet, if you would read the packet, you just see it breaks it out. The number of meetings that they have, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think it goes through, it's the whole timeline.
Yeah.
So we're in
Yeah.
September.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Once we get the samples from the State Department, which probably won't be until about December, because the final list from the textbook commission, we won't get that until November. But once we get that, we order the samples from all the companies that are eligible to be reviewed by the local committee. And then we put those out for parents. They have them in the schools, and we also have them at the media center. So there is that option. There will also be links on the website once we have that information for any parent who wants to review it. But as far as, if the board wants to change the composition of the committee, certainly that is falls under your purview.
Yeah, I mean, that's your prerogative. All that's done prior to the selection process, before anything's adopted.
And then there's already a schedule for each subject that's well in advance. So we're on science and
Yes.
some type of mathematics or maybe,
Yeah,
or,
so the mathematical reasoning that you saw on it's in my folder on the online in your online packet, I gave you a timeline of what the state has put out for adoption. It says science and mathematical reasoning. The mathematical reasoning was actually done in the spring. If you watched the meeting, you probably saw us. There was only one option for that. So it was either have a book or not have a book. So we will, having said that, we will only be adopting science this year. And I know like in elementary school, for example, I'm sorry, I
Oh,
didn't
you're good.
interrupt you. Like in elementary school, for example, you wanna make sure that you have like a K2 rep and a 3-5 rep from teachers. Middle school, we try to have multiple grade levels because you want the teachers who know the standards the best. So if I'm a 6th grade teacher, so obviously I'm gonna know the 6th grade standards the best because they wanna go through and really make sure, number one, although it should be done at the state level with the State Textbook Commission, we want the teachers to make sure that all the standards are actually covered so that they don't have to go out and pull additional resources. And so that's why we want as many teachers as possible. Of course, you can't get too many because then the meeting isn't manageable. But we try to get a variety to cover multiple grade levels, if that helps.
The input that's put out online with the samples, how much is the input that is sent to through emails or whatever from parents, anybody that uses it, how much is that taken into account for approval of the book?
I'll be honest, Mr. Gray, we don't really get a lot of folks who actually even go. Sometimes after the fact, after the adoption is done, then people will say, you know, once we're actually using the curriculum, sometimes you'll get questions. But really, I mean, to be honest, we don't really get a lot of input, and sometimes, again, just to be as transparent, just to be as honest as I can.
Absolutely.
Even when we have a lot of parents, sometimes they don't always make it to the meetings. You know, we wish they would, because we do want their input, obviously, but it doesn't always work out that way.
The March 15th, textbook adoption hearing, what is the hearing? How does that work?
All right, so we will get a list from the state. I'll give you like a quick synopsis. We get a list from the State Textbook Commission that says, these are your choices. And then the local committee will start reviewing it. There will be some that they will like more than others, but we will have multiple meetings as that schedule shows. And I wish Ms. Shipley was here because she kind of leads that process, but I can answer to the best of my ability. But they will have several meetings. They will also, in addition to the district committee, there's a school level committee. Every school has a committee with more teachers and more folks involved in that, more parents involved. But we narrow it down, and they bring their selections from the school to the district committee. The hearing is just the final meeting where the group decides what we're actually going to put before you all. They're gonna say, this is what we want, board. And so then they all sign off on it. They have to take an oath that there's not a conflict of interest, et cetera, et cetera. And then we put it before you guys in the spring, and if you approve it, then that is the official adoption.
So there's a fail stop with the board through the adoption process?
You all actually get the last say. The board has to adopt it officially, and then we start ordering textbooks. We look at budgeting, that's where Mr. Doherty comes in and figure out how much, we could spend, and then we purchase textbooks. So yes, the board is the last stop before the adoption becomes final.
September 19th, if you want to attend that meeting, is when they do the process.
The committee, if it's approved tonight, now if it's not approved tonight, then we're gonna have to adjust our timeline a little bit because we're gonna have to go back and probably put it before you guys in October. So that's gonna cause us to not be able to have, which if that's the will of the board, but we're gonna have to shift everything back.
Only question I got left, how is the parent selected to be a part of this committee?
The schools take care of that.
Oh, okay, so it's part of the individual school, okay.
Yes, sir. They have multiple parents, and then from those parents, they select a rep for the district committee. Yeah, school level decision. Just as the teachers, that's school level decision.
Do you have any other questions?
And we're allowed to attend all those?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
You guys can't be like, members of the committee because you are the final vote, but we encourage you, and we've had multiple board members attend these meetings, of course, yeah.
I have a question as well. When the board member attends those committee meetings, are they allowed to speak or see any of the textbooks at that time, or are they just a part of the
Yeah.
listening in on the committee?
I mean, of course, you can ask questions and all, you just, we've never really experienced this, but I would have to go back and review the public chapter. I don't think you can be part of the deliberations, but again, I'm speaking off the top of my head because, but not saying you couldn't be in there, but I don't think you can help make the decision. But I'll have to double check what the law says on that. I'm not sure that I know the exact answer, but because you're the final say, I don't think you can be a part of the adoption committee. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you can ask questions of the vendor, look
Yeah.
at the stuff,
We will
all
have the
that, but you
vendors,
can't,
the vendors will
you
come
can't
in
collaborate with
presentations.
another, if there's another board member there watching, y'all can't collaborate, because that'd be a sunshine law violation. But you can ask any questions you want to and see whatever you want.
I think the ability to be able to be better informed if my phone starts ringing is where, the angle that I was looking at. You know, if it starts to ring, then I wanna go and sit and listen and better figure it out that way.
You're welcome to attend
Right.
all of those.
I've got one other question. As far as the textbooks as well, does that include the teacher's guides and stuff like that as well? I mean, you're full-on textbooks, but you get to see everything that they're teaching as well that they have to present. Is that part of that textbook?
Yeah, so they get, the vendors, well, it depends on what the vendor releases, like, we don't really have that much control over what they send us, but typically, I can only speak from past experience, they will send a sampling, like, if it's elementary, they'll send a kindergarten, a first, a second, and which will also include the teacher guides, and sometimes they may not give you a physical book, we may have to look online, they give a code, and you have to, so it's kind of done differently, it depends on the vendor, but yes, they typically have very access to pretty much everything. I can't think of a time where we wouldn't have access to it all.
And this is when March 14th, 2025, textbooks adoption hearing for adoption decisions, that's where the board would vote on?
No, sir,
No.
that's the committee. They'll
Okay,
make a
okay.
they'll make a final decision on that day.
Okay, and then,
it comes before you guys
Okay.
at the next board meeting.
and if we do not vote on that and approve that,
It
then
goes-
it goes all the way back to the entire process, or it goes back to the process prior?
I mean, we won't start back in September, but the committee would get back together and redo the hearing. And so what we would probably do, if you all said, no, that's not the textbook that, we're not gonna approve that. We would have the building level committees go back to the drawing board with their teachers, because what happens is they kind of deliberate, if you will, I don't think that's the right word, but they discuss it at the school level first, and then the reps from the school level come together on that March date and make that decision. So if you guys say, no, we're not gonna approve that, then it would go back to that building level committee for some additional discussion. We would bring the district level committee again and say, all right, we can't use this company, so let's go with Plan B, and then we would put it back before you all again as soon as we could.
We have any other questions on the textbooks adoption process? Do we have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept it.
Mr. McCann makes a motion, we have a second. Mr. Lavelle gets a second. Oh, Mr. Jenkins, sorry. Yep. Do we have, any other discussions on the motion? All in favor of the textbook adoption process for 2024-2025 school year, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. I pulled out, Section E, first reading policy revision. Give me a second, let me get to it. I just had a question on it before, make sure I understood.
Make sure I've got the right revision here.
Okay.
You're talking about the
Pilot,
4.6?
4.6
Okay.
grading system.
Got
My question is, can you explain, I assume this was brought out of the policy at some other board meeting, is that correct?
No,
And
that's
needed-
not correct. What happens is TSBA they keep our policy in check with the law, because the law's changed. So when you look at that policy, the only thing's changing in that policy is what's in red. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see in red also, for this Public Act of 2024, chapter number 1005. Well, the law changed, so for whatever reason, what's in that law, TSBA, who manages our policy manual, makes these recommendations on what we're changing. And if I'm not mistaken, our grading change quite often? I mean, is this policy, is there? It's a
This
frequent
policy
thing.
changes a lot. Every time the law, they make an adjustment to any of the laws, they have to tweak the policy because there's an annotation to it that requires that you change the policy. So it's, frankly, this one, and then this one's tied to 2 or 3 other ones that we end up changing all. So every time they change the law, you have to make a slight revision so our policy is up to date.
Okay.
So it matches the law correctly.
Okay, all right, that was the only discussion I had.
Could we do explanation on the grading floor minimum about 0, the new law change? Is there?
Yes, sorry, Ms. Bird.
Wait, no permission, sorry. Yes, so like Mr. McCann said, TSBA lets us know when the laws change that affect education. And that's a service that, when you do your new board member training, they'll talk to you about that, but that's a service we pay them to do. And, they send that out. And so in this particular case, what the law is saying is that we can't set as a district a minimum score. If a student has an F, then it's an F, and we can't say, well, you have to at least give them a 50 or a 59 if the score is what it is. And that was a law change, so then we, upon their advice, and, I mean, we pretty much have to put it in because it's the law, so, does that make sense?
It does. I guess I'm questioning why that law was added specifically like this.
It's a good question.
There'll be a ton of
Well,
them.
That's
Well,
love me.
The rationale is if you had a first and second, and then you had a student that struggled here, well, he knows that he'll never finish the school year.
Yeah,
So you're
exactly.
man, you're
yeah.
exactly
If you
right.
have a 20, it's almost impossible to recover from that. And so, I guess my concern, as an educator, I would worry what that student is going to do second semester because their motivation is now gone. It doesn't matter how hard they work, they can't recover from that. But, as you can see in the footnote, it was a law change, as Mr. McCann said. So we, by law, have to, put it in our policy.
And Mr. Gill, back in the day,
Mhm.
if I can, but back in the day, back when I was principal forever ago, I had all my teachers say, look, I mean, because you're right, you can't recover. So, you give them, if an F's an F, so give them the score, but second semester, they decide they can do better and they want to put forth more effort and you can't hardly recover from a 10, but from a 59 or a 60, you decide you're gonna straighten up and work on stuff, you can recover, it gives you a fighting chance, right? So, in my opinion, that law's ludicrous, but it's still a law, so. Back to the state comment that Mr. Gray made earlier, sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not, so.
Mr. Daughter?
I just want to point out to y'all, if you'll look at the bottom of that attachment, it's got a hyperlink. If you click on that, you can bring up the actual public chapter that Dr. Byrd is discussing, Dr. Combs, seeing that this legislation was about Ms. Moody, and it goes into why or what they changed in the statute in detail. So you can select that link, read that, then you can click on the link of the statute and see where they changed it. So it kind of helps give context to it.
Thank you. Any other discussion, any other questions? Do we have a motion to accept this, policy revision? Ms. Eubanks has the motion, we have a second.
Second.
Mr. Gill has a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Dr. Combs?
Yes, sir. So, 3 things really. The first thing is, I'm gonna bring something to your attention. Then I've invited, Linkus Construction. They're gonna give y'all an update on GMP. So you can see that on the new bills. And then also, Mr. Houston Estes and his team with insurance is here as well, to give a response to that GMP. And I will say that, we'll continue to work on that with them. So, we're looking forward to hearing those. Before I say that though, all you gotta do is pick up social media here lately. I hesitated whether or not even to say this on camera because, I don't like people to get ideas, but this AI thing is is a big issue with threats, you know, being ex-law enforcement and all that kind of stuff. Y'all realize that. And there's apps and there's all these things you can go through. I've been interacting with Homeland Security the last 2 or 3 days more than I have in the last 2 or 3 months. But they're just, you know, they're just ways that people are just able to get around things. You know, we have threats that actually originate like in Europe, and it looks like it's bounced through our own system. I mean, it's just crazy. Crockett County, Bartlett, some of our schools, all just in the last few days, we've had all these things. I would like to make a suggestion to the board that you allow me to ask a rep from Homeland Security and law enforcement to come to the October meeting and just kind of give us an update on kind of how we're dealing with those things and what those things kind of entail. I know we had a conversation about some of the stuff there in Bright, right? And it's just, and a lot of it has folks scratching their heads, but a lot of, you know, I did speak with Judge Eccles today, and, you know, he's using a hammer now. I mean, when we catch folks that are doing it, we're not playing. I mean, they're, you know, they, like, you know, the one today wanted some time, was just trying to get out of school, just wanted a day off from school. But guess what? He's gonna get a lot of time out of school now. So, but that's the thing, right? So, it's just a big disturbance for the whole community, for parents, for kids. Everybody's on edge. So, anyway, with y'all's approval, I'd like to, you know, ask your recommendation that we move, that you let me do that, so I can have those people present to y'all.
I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second that. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Cannon makes a motion, Mr. Gray seconds it, that the motion is, let's restate the motion, is to bring.
That I'm gonna have an agent from Homeland Security and law enforcement here to go over these things that I've just been talking about with y'all next
Okay,
meeting.
all right, just, but law enforcement being,
Law enforcement, Sheriff's Department.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've spoken with, Sheriff, Shannon, and also, well, Brandon Matlock is one of the agents I've been speaking with, who works closely with us, and then a few others that I've met with as well.
could we have discussion around just the security of the schools as well, and I don't know, because I've been thinking about the same thing, is it's not just security, but also is what are our plans, you know, without letting everybody know, but, you know, do we have
Absolutely.
good plans in place for something, God forbid, something happened as in Georgia or anything like that, but what, you know, it'd be nice to know is,
Yes, sir.
you know, what's our strategic plan?
And we have an EOP, Emergency Operations Plan. We talked to Baker McCool about it. You know, Glenn kind of oversees that. We do have that. This board would probably want to do that in a meeting that's not this public.
Agreed.
Because there are gonna be some strategies, obviously, that you need to know about, that the whole world doesn't need to know about, so that they don't decide to use those strategies and work against them, right?
Agreed.
So, but yes, that's absolutely something we wanna do. I do think this meeting with the agent and with the sheriff would be a good first step, and then I think it'd be good to plan a meeting after that, get we have a closed meeting on that. That's just my opinion. Yep. Y'all good?
So the motion's on the floor. Do we have any other discussions? Any other questions? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. And now I'm gonna ask Rusty, you the spokesperson for your team?
Well,
All right.
I'm gonna introduce the spokesperson, how about that?
Oh, okay, sounds good to me.
Mr. Chair, board members, thank you for allowing us to come here today and present the GMP. This is a day that I know everybody's been waiting on, and y'all driven by and seen that we had some early release packages. We've been at work, but now we've got the total price for the school, all in, that we're gonna show you tonight. Before I introduce Preston, Preston Wiley's our director of pre-con. He's gonna come up and kind of talk about the process we went through and then show you the estimate. But I've also got Perry Miller here, director of operations, and our design partners are here, Logan and Stewart, tonight. So I will make one final statement, and that is, we bid a lot of schools. We do a lot of schoolwork. We've got 6 school projects going on right now. Just in the last 24 months, the square foot price of these schools were a lot higher than what we ended up getting on this. And so we're very pleased with the number, but the process that Preston's gonna go through, we had a lot of coverage. There's a lot of interest from the subcontracting community to be a part of this. So we're pleased, and with that, Preston, why don't you come up and
My name is Preston Wiley, as he introduced me. We appreciate y'all letting us be here to go through this. So, just a little background on where we've been. So in the springtime, the design team got us some early release packages. We had an early release package for, the site work, and then we had a second one for kind of the structural elements of the building. And then we had a final package that kind of finished up the balance of all the rest of the school pieces. So in that process, we advertise, each time we advertise, in Jackson, the commercial field in Memphis, and then, in the Covington paper. And so those were all publicly done. Some packages we had more interest in than others, but overall, we had really good participation. Each time we went through that process, we received bids publicly. Some were opened here, some of them were down in the, in their facility down the hill. And so those were opened up. Everybody got to see the numbers. We at that point, went back and gathered that information, vetted those bids out, called the different contractors and made sure that everybody had everything they wanted to. So in each one of these, we wrote a detailed bid package as well of scope of work. So all the contractors were bidding apples and apples of the detailed scope that we developed. We in turn at that point would come back and assemble those with a bid tabulation and all the bids, and then we would in turn turn that over to the owner for his use. So we went through, this is what we call a composite estimate. So this is, every time we did one of these, we had a GMP amendment that would be the current pricing, and then we'd have a next step and a next step. And so this estimate right here is just a composite of all those estimates put together. So in this, we've got some of the front end stuff. So we've got our, what we're calling, the first section is really our estimating and pre-construction services portion of it. Yeah. And then the general requirements portion, that's our a team out there on the project. And then we get into project requirements. These are all items that are that we need to build a building to go through. So as we go through these, we can, if you want to slide up, we can get into the bid package portion. The next.
Keep going.
Well, yeah. So we go up to the allowances. So as a team, we developed some allowances that are the school's money. So these are all items that we will spend money in, but they'll be approved by the Tipton County Schools prior to spending any money on each one of those. So we've got a contingency allowance that we have a 3%, utility fees. There's several things in our design, so we've got those in here. So we've really got a holistic look at your school and got a complete cost. So you got things like the softball field and football field that aren't designed, but we've got a placeholder for when they are designed. We'll solicit and get bids for that piece.
Good,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm good. So now we're in the bid package area. So going through these, each one of these packages, I think we have roughly close to 40 packages. We're all bid out. And like Rusty said earlier, we went through a previous estimate that we went through prior to in a DD level, and then we had a good benchmark to start this one. We saw really good performance. We kind of hit the market at the right time. Elections coming up and some of the fear of what work may or may not be out there. We saw prices fall. Between design team continuing to make changes in your favor and the market being right for picking, it was we saw 15% savings at this level. So all these items were bid out. If you want to roll up to we can just get to the very bottom.
there.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah, we can just cut to the chase. So down at the bottom, you'll see,
Right here.
yeah, right there, estimate total. So you'll see our fee, which this is the fee we proposed on when you selected us, 2.85%. Our estimate total was $65,534,308, $308,000. So, this is what we came up with at the final GMP amount. So, we feel pretty good about that.
That's really good news, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. From the news where we started from, so. And to be quite honest, like we talked about, when some of you guys were in here when we interviewed, I mean, as of last year, you see the square foot costs at $312. We saw schools at $380, $350 in the last 2 years. Some schools that are designed, where they wanna spend a lot of money, you can be $400 for it, and we see those, but, I think you're getting good value. I think you've got a good team in your designer, and they helped us to deliver some good news to you.
I said this in the meeting the other night too, y'all, but it was, I calculated again last week, our square foot number went up 0.997, so less than 1% was the square footage increase, between the two separate buildings, and then when we put them together, this is the total number, of course, for both buildings, we went up less than 1% total in square footage.
Any questions?
So on the bid packets have been received, you calculate your numbers, how long are these good for? Until when are we doing the notice to proceed? I'm catching up real quick.
That's good.
So.
That's why they're here. Go ahead.
So yes, we have in turn, sent people, a notice to proceed that we're planning on entering into a subcontract agreement with each one of these people so we can lock their numbers in. And so we've turned in the GMP amendment to Dr. Combs, and so, we turned that in as long, so that's just where we're at. So some folks are already under contract, some of the early packages, so we've got, I don't know if you guys have been informed, so we've got, a lot of the dirt work operations have been complete, so they've been under contract. Concrete's going on, we've had, deep foundation, geo piers or aggregate piers. We've got, masonry currently going on. We've ordered structural steel, ordered our switch gear, we've ordered, the generator. And so we've got a lot of things in process, and we've hit the ground running, and we're actually, moving right along with the schedule.
Sounds like it.
Hunter supplied a number of pictures, Mr. Gill, for you too, in there that, he gave me yesterday that I put in your packet, so you can see kind of footings and stuff.
How are we handling change orders?
Maybe a question for Perry Miller.
So there's no surprise?
That's not my department. I do all the pre stuff, so
Well,
once it becomes.
I guess our goal is to not have any change orders,
Right.
but, as Preston, I think you showed earlier, we do have a 3% contingency. So depending on the direction of Dr. Combs and his group, it would be my recommendation, if we do have change order items, to take those items out of the project contingency. Unless it's a real big, unless we're adding, a major component to the building, then we probably need to look at it differently, but it'd be my opinion, we need to take it out of project contingency.
And most of those major components, we've got a set allowance for some of those outside the contingency. So we feel like we've got a good safety buffer for you to work out of and not have to go outside these dollars here for additional.
But as far as the change order is concerned though, in the contract, it's stated under that CMAR process is you cover the change orders, is that correct? If, let's just say it's a deficient set of documents, or if there's a change from, let's say A2H on the drawings, they messed up, in the contract, you as a CMAR, eat those,
Well, they would come,
I
they
believe that's
would,
what the contract, we probably need to revise that, but I
They
think
would
that's what
come
I
out.
read, is that if it's, we need,
We're not responsible, we don't have professional design liability, so, I mean, I'm giving an answer to your direct, statement that I heard you just say. We're not responsible for any design deficiencies.
but you are the CMAR though, right? Because you control
Yeah,
A2H,
but I didn't
correct?
design, I didn't, no, they're not under my contract, no.
So they're separate contracts.
Yes, what's your name?
Logan meets with A2H, I'm the
All
president
right,
of
Mr. Logan,
A2H.
go ahead.
So, we have a contract directly with Tipton County Schools. If there's an issue with errors and omissions, we have professional liability insurance that would step in to help cover you in that regard.
As far as, I've got a question for Linkus, as far as the 70-30 owner split, what number was that based off of? Is that based off the GMP, or is that based off of the original number that was set?
No, it's based off the
Based off the
GMP.
final GMP.
So,
Once the GMP amendment, is executed, that is the number, which is that number. Right there.
so we would anticipate not having to see that at all, correct, on this process?
Correct, and remember that number right there includes can you go back up to the contingencies and allowances, the allowance section? Because those allowances, we're gonna use some of that money, I mean, I'm assuming we're gonna end up building a softball field and football field. So we know we're gonna use some of this, but that's $8 million, or I'm rounding up, but that's $8 million in allowances, so that GMP includes that, and whatever is not used, goes back to the owner, so, that would be part of, that scenario, that savings split, but I would think 3%, and I know we talked about this with you, 3% on a project of this magnitude is pretty standard. And it's wise to enter a project of this magnitude with a contingency. But again, the school system approves those dollars. We can't use those contingency dollars without approval.
So those are
your numbers.
these are our numbers, correct? Is those numbers, are those budgeted?
Yeah, they're in this number.
No, I mean, are they budget, if they're our numbers, are they budgeted on, this is more to Mr. Daughter, do we? Okay, okay.
Will we be provided a copy of that?
That'd be up to.
Sure. Yeah, it's your document, be glad to.
And no, Mr. Chairman, every 2 weeks, we have an OAC meeting, and as part of that agenda is a contingency log and allowance log. And so those are updated anytime any dollars are spent. Every 2 weeks in that meeting, the school representatives that are there will get a copy of that. So you'll know at all times where you are.
So I'll go back to real quick, the contract, and again, I apologize, because I wasn't here when it drafted, so I'm just asking here, just to cover our basis from the finance side, but in 6.2, guaranteed maximum price, costs which cause the guaranteed GMP price to be exceeded shall be paid by the construction manager without reimbursement by the owner. What consideration would that be when, would that not be considered a change order at that time?
Well, so I don't know what heading that falls under, what super heading, but if you go to the A201, and I think it's in the A133, which document is that, the A133?
Yes.
The general conditions that supplement that, the A201 has a specific section of changes of work, and it specifically says approved change. Again, owner has to approve changes, but approved changes are paid, and what we proposed in the contract is the same fee, so we're not gonna inflate the markup. So approved change, if you've got an approved change for $50,000, because they wanna change something in the job, finish or something, then we'll supply that and we'll put a 2.85% markup. But you really need the A201 on top of it.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, to discuss any part of that contract if you want me to come back at a different time, I'm happy to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
And I could just ask a small favor. Are y'all gonna issue your progress timeline? How you,
A schedule?
yes,
Yes, sir.
as you update it?
We issue that as, we have an owner, and contractor meeting every 2 weeks, and that schedule's presented at each one of those meetings, so,
And update it.
and updated, so.
We'll get that to y'all.
That'd be great.
I'll get with this.
Is there any other questions concerning the
Is this just, I do have a question on this. This is the first time we're seeing this document. Is this correct? This is the first time this document has been shared with this group?
Yes, sir.
Has this document been shared with DVI or the insurance company at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
This document has been shared?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Do we know what time, when that was shared?
Mr. Houston, when did we send that to y'all? I don't
I
remember.
don't think we have this, Dr. Combs.
We didn't give, you don't have the GMP?
No, sir.
Okay.
When was this document prepared?
It's got a,
Is
that the date, August 18th?
This was when we took the numbers on August 18th.
Okay, so this GMP was put together back on August 18th, is that correct?
Mhm.
So nearly 3 weeks later, and our insurance company does not have it. And they're the ones that's gonna be paying the majority sum of the construction costs? Is there an explanation for that? Other than I sure thought they had it, but I'll go back and check. Because no, they're one of the first ones. Matter of fact, I had a text with Mr. Houston that said I was sending it to him. So I'll look back during that time.
Thank you, Dr. Combs. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think with Lincoln, I mean, I'm just curious, have we been giving things to the insurance company as needed with?
So what we do is, we, at the end of each one of these processes, we bundle it up and we send it to Tipton County. Just because this is our client, and so we go through the chain of command.
Yeah.
But we would be glad to share it, I would think, if that's what's requested.
Well, I think there was a meeting, if I'm not mistaken, there was a meeting, with you guys as well as Linkus and I think Dr. Combs and Mr. McCann. That Dr. Combs, I think he had said that you guys could work directly with the insurance company, is that correct? And if the insurance company needed something, that y'all could send that directly to them, is that correct?
I think exactly, because Giles was the one speaking, he addressed Giles and said, you can speak directly to Lincoln with any request. And to my knowledge, we have fulfilled everything that's been asked.
Okay, so you fulfilled, everything that the insurance company has stated or laid out, we fulfilled those requests, is that correct?
To my knowledge.
Okay,
I will make one statement. I do have a company policy. I don't send a contract to anybody but the person I'm signing.
and that's fair enough, I understand that, but other documents as well, right? I mean, such as the GMP here, that breaks down the unit pricing, correct? And I'm not trying to throw Lincoln.
Well, no, that document doesn't have unit price on it. We send backup with you.
Okay, all right, so I do have some other questions here, and I'm, not to take that much time, but I do have some questions that kind of were related to some emails this morning, and, there's quite a bit of, DVI's put a statement together or an RFI out to Lincoln, and there's quite a bit of documents that are missing, and the reason I bring this up is because I think we'd all want the insurance to pay out everything they can as fast as we can, because at some point, we're gonna run out of money, I would assume, and we need to figure that out. So has Linkus been, forthright in giving everything to DVI on, as they've asked?
So when we reviewed that document today, you sent that.
I sent everything that I had today. Again, we previously forwarded that and I don't know if it got to DVI or the insurance company, I don't know.
So in that email that he's got, it's one I prepared and it was actually, he forwarded one that we had sent, so that has all the bid tabulations, all the bids, all the different estimates that we've had, plus the compilation estimate. So we had a meeting, the last time we had a virtual meeting, I think there was a request for DPI, and you'll see it on there for, unit costing. And this has come up on a lot of it, that they'd asked, and we were willing to give them unit cost on the project, from the sub, so they could just work on, do their side, would help them with their estimate, their internal estimate. We have not gotten, so we had requested, hey, what do you want unit pricing on? Do you want it on 8-inch block, 12-inch block, what do you want? And we have not gotten that, so we can't deliver that piece of information that's pending on that until we get the, you know, what they want. So there's a little bit of both sides.
I agree. There's a document too, though, as well as that got sent out a couple of months ago, and I think they sent it 3 times, and I think it was based off the early release packages, especially early release package 2, and I still don't think we've got all that information as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've got everything on that.
Okay.
Yeah, they asked for unit pricing, and we actually did that right out of the chute, cause that was the first one, and we're still hung on that one.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, there are some documents that we don't have yet. They requested copies of subcontracts. We've sent all of them, they're executed, but until we get them executed, we don't send them. And they're not all executed, we just reach the GMP.
But we do have a unit price. We do have those numbers from the subs that we can break those down into unit pricing and get them for each line item.
Well,
So as we,
Again, we took so these bids we take are lump sum, hard number bids from contractors. They don't give us lump sum, they don't give us unit price, we don't have them break the bids down like that. So they have a scope, they bid it, we open them. The only way we can get unit pricing, which most of the subs would do whatever to help us, and we volunteered that early on, that we would do that, but it would be after we take bids. We need to know what material items they need for us to get unit pricing from the subs. And until we get that, we're just shooting in the dark, and we're gonna waste a lot of people's time. We could be going after oranges and they want apples, so. So there's a little bit of, you gotta have, both sides have to give the information they need.
Okay.
And we'll be glad to do that. We just need to know what they want.
I would just say on behalf of the board and myself is we need to work as diligently with Crawford and DBI as fast as we can and get them the information they need.
I believe everybody's got the best intentions on both sides. I mean, from Lincoln's side, and, I think the process needs to play itself out. You know what I mean? It's a long process, let it play out. We just got the GMP, it's, I think when we first started this thing, we talked like it was a dance, you know what I mean? And, this thing's gotta be, it'll carry its whole way through, so. I think we need to move on.
No further questions. Anybody have anything else?
It is a lot better price.
Yeah, a lot better price, lot we have to.
And I will say that, Malice, include one thing, Mr. Chair, so I just sent you a copy, so I sent Mr. Houston an email on August the 21st. It said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Houston, as we discussed on the phone this morning, I wanted to share the GMP final figure with you today, 65.5 million. This number has not yet been shared with our board, however, Lincoln does plan on presenting it to them at the September meeting." So I sent him this. I may have misspoke, however, whenever I said he has seen that document. I don't know that he has. Houston is correct. I don't know if he's seen that document. He does know the GMP because I sent that to him in the email. So I shared that with you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have someone else? Dr. Combs? Was it insurance?
Insurance was going to give a reply to the GMP, yes,
All
sir.
right. We'll recognize Crawford, Mr. Houston. If you just introduce yourself to the.
Hi, excuse me. Thanks for letting us come. Again, I came a year ago or so, and I've been back a few times. My name is Houston Estes. I'm with Crawford and Company, and We represent local government property casualty fund, which is your insurer, and then also the reinsurance market, or the reinsurance program, which reinsures local government. So local government, just a crash course on how this works. Local government writes your insurance policy, and they retain $250,000 of that exposure. And then $1 over $250,000, they reinsurance, they purchase reinsurance through a member or owned organization that local government is a part owner of, called County Reinsurance Limited. County Reinsurance Limited then carries a multiple or a multiplier of the self-insured retention of $250,000 themselves. They carry that on their books. And then County Reinsurance Limited goes out to the international insurance property markets, and they purchase reinsurance yet again, upwards of $1 billion in reinsurance. So that second layer of reinsurance is comprised of a number of carriers that attach at several layers. And I will not bore you with all the details, but we report to them based upon the value of the claim. So if you have a $50 million claim, or a $25 million claim, or a $100 million claim, then you have different involved parties because they attach at different levels. And so with that, you have insurers or underwriters, as they're known, that are based out of the London property markets. There are Caribbean reinsurers down in Bermuda. There are domestic reinsurers here in the United States, and then there are Asian reinsurers out of primarily Hong Kong. So we have a lot of people that we report to. This reinsurance program is brokered out of Atlanta through a large international brokerage called Marsh. And Marsh helps place all of this coverage. It's a very complex program, but that's a crash course in how it works. So I report to local government in Nashville. I live in Nashville. I also report to CRL. They're in North Carolina. And because of the size of your claim, I report to all of the other international and domestic insurance participants. Okay, so right now there are about 50 people that are involved in this claim on the reporting side. Some are brokers, some are reinsurance examiners, the claims folks that we actually report to. Some are managers at CRL and local government, and Marsh and everybody else. So there's a lot of people involved, a lot of eyes on the prize here because of the value of the claim. This is the largest claim that local government has ever sustained in its history. This is also the largest claim that the program called County Reinsurance Limited, or CRL, has ever sustained in its history. CRL reinsures 28 other state programs, and this is the largest claim they've ever had. So again, there's a lot of scrutiny on it. We prepared a quick deck for everyone, and can I pull this back?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
I feel like I'm sitting in your lap. But we prepared a quick deck because I know we have a lot of new board members, and we wanted to explain the process from start to finish because some of you were aware of this from when we explained it last year, but we've got some new folks here, and we want to give you just a general overview of what goes on, how it works, and what we're doing in the background. So first, as you know, we insured the Crestview schools. I understand the name has changed for the new campus, but the way that we identified, they were Crestview Middle and Crestview Elementary, okay? Your insurance program is written with two insurers. They are co-insurers, Tipton County Government and the Board of Education. So like a husband and wife, you both own this policy, okay? It covers you both. And essentially you both have to sign off on things, but you all have a good relationship with each other, and so Tipton County Government has deferred this process over to Dr. Combs and the Board of Education, and that's worked out well so far. So I think we all know the date of loss, March 31st, 2023, and we certainly know the peril, which is a tornado. That's an insurance term. The cause of loss sometimes is what it's known as well. So we'll move on to the coverage part of it. I've explained the reinsurance process to you, and I'm sure you remember all of it verbatim. But we can hit on that again if y'all have any questions about that. But the county and the Board of Education have a deductible, it's $10,000. That's already been applied. I don't think you, and it will, ultimately, it will be absorbed because, one of your sublimits that apply to this claim, you've exceeded that, which is for extra expense, and I can explain that in a moment. So there is essentially no deductible because you have certain losses that are uninsured, okay, because we've exceeded the limit on a few things. To the limits, it's a complicated issue to describe on the limits here because you essentially get what you have is the TIV, the total insured value. The TIV for the county and for the school system at the time that this loss occurred was around $200 million. So the limit of liability is around $200 million. You're not gonna have a problem on building or personal property. So personal property is this stuff, the building, I think we know what that is. You're not gonna have any issue there. There are sublimits that apply. One of them that applies to this loss was extra expense. That is for you all to continue any operations outside of normal business, any extra expense that you incur to continue to operate. You had a $500,000 limit for that. The county agreed to assign all of those proceeds over to the Board of Education, and we've done that some time ago. So we paid the $500,000. There is no more recovery on extra expense. And I'll give you an example of what that would be. On your homeowner's policy, you might see that as additional living expense or loss of use sometimes. In this case, it would be an expense incurred for temporary schools. Okay, so any costs that were associated for you to continue to operate above and beyond what you would already spend every month, every year, every day, whatever, that would fall under extra expense. So we knew that you were gonna blow through that, so we wrote the check and you have the money. A brief overview of replacement cost versus actual cash value. That's an insurance term or insurance terms. Your policy provides coverage for exactly what you had, where you had it, at the time of the loss. So, if you had two schools, then if you have two schools like Crestview Elementary and Crestview Middle that were damaged or destroyed, then we cover the replacement costs associated with those two schools. Anything above and beyond replacing those two schools would be on the insured, would be on the county or the Board of Education, okay? So part of that is we refer to that as like, kind, and quality. As is, where is, like, kind, and quality, all right? So that's important to remember if you make changes or you go back. Lots of times a way to think of that is if you have a fire in your kitchen and you've got linoleum and you decide, well, I wanna go back with hardwoods or tile or whatever it is. We would pay you for linoleum or vinyl flooring. Any extra money you spend would be for hardwood flooring. Any extra money that you would spend for hardwood flooring would be out of your pocket. So that's an example of what I'm talking about there. We have valued the buildings and the contents at actual cash value. That is essentially the used car price for what you have, the fair value of a used car, right? The market price. Replacement cost is different because it doesn't. Replacement cost takes into account absorbing all of what is known as depreciation, okay? And that is a complicated concept. There is no reason for us to get bogged down in that because you have replacement cost coverage and you're gonna get that, okay? So the claim settlement process is a bit antiquated and it's paid at actual cash value up front. And then as you incur the costs above and beyond actual cash value, you then can recover what is known as the withheld depreciation. It's held in an account over here, a trust or escrow, whatever how you want to think about it, and then you get up to that amount as you incur it, okay? So You also have another coverage called ordinance or law, which is colloquially known as code upgrades. Code upgrades would apply if you have a school that, or a building that was not ADA compliant, or was not, we had, Dr. Combs, what was the shelter, the storm shelter, is that what it was? We had to make some changes to, was it the cafeteria?
Cafeteria, turn them into tornado-safe rooms, that was gonna be the new design.
Right, a
Based
generator,
on new code and all that, right?
HVAC, you know, I think what everybody has to have 9 square feet, or every soul that you have in the building, you gotta have 9 square feet for them, and, or some formula to put them all in one room in case of an event or a storm. So that's a code requirement. That is, you didn't have that before, but you have coverage for it under the ordinance or law coverage or code upgrade, so we pay for that additional cost. Another thing that we allowed for during the code upgrade process was increased gym height to accommodate the TSSAA sporting events that you all host here and had hosted in the past. So that's another example of something in addition that you didn't have before, but we're allowing as part of the claim, because you wouldn't be able to host those events any longer if you didn't have a certain height on the walls, the exterior walls, or the ceiling height. So I'll give you a brief update on the contents. As you can imagine, the 2 schools had a lot of stuff in them, and almost all of it was destroyed. I know you all did a fantastic job of salvaging as much as you could to move into the new or the temporary schools. We've not asked that you keep really any of that. Anything that you wanted to claim, we were fine with including that because it was exposed to water, debris, dirt, dust, humidity, the elements, for lack of a better term. So we have been fairly open-minded about anything that you wanted to put in there. The evaluation on that has taken a really long time because we had to inspect the contents as they were in the building, or in the buildings, and then we used, I think, Dr. Combs, we used y'all's 3-dimensional imaging scans, the Matterport scans, to help us go back. We actually have people that go back and sit there and look at those things. It's like a dollhouse, a digital dollhouse where you can walk through the rooms and see what was in there. And we're doing the best we can to count all the pins and staples and posters and pieces of paper and all that. We're probably gonna miss some things. That's the nature of it. We're not finished with that process yet. We're close, very close. I keep doing a bait and switch with Dr. Combs. I tell him every time I talk to him once a month that we're gonna have it done next month or next week, and we don't. I'm sorry, it's a long process. We will get there. And we will work with the board here to resolve any concerns over the inventory. We're gonna send that back. We're not gonna finalize it without you all agreeing to that. So we'll work with Dr. Combs and Jamie and all the folks up here to try and put a final number on that and make sure that you all understand it and are agreeable to it. The next slide, we'll talk about the insurance claims process. So when a loss event occurs, the adjustment process begins with the adjustment team. And I failed to introduce 2 colleagues I brought with me. Giles Harper with DBI Construction Consultants, and who is the principal in Atlanta. And then we also have Andy Francis, who's the project manager with DBI. There are others involved. There's engineers, there are accountants, there's me, I'm an adjuster, there are all sorts of experts and other folks involved in the back end that are not here with us tonight. But the adjustment team begins by inspecting the damage, assessing the extent of that damage, and preparing an initial cost estimate. The team then presents these damage costs for review, ensuring accuracy and completeness. Once the repairs or replacement are completed, the incurred costs are reviewed to compare actual expenses against the initial estimates. Finally, the adjustment team calculates and presents the final payment recommendation for settlement. So in this process, we're not like the State Farm or the nationwide adjuster that comes out to settle your claim on your roof. We don't have authority. We make recommendations. I do not have draft authority or settlement authority, is what it is known as. I cannot make an agreement on behalf of our clients, which are the insurers that are involved. without their express and written consent. They have to tell us that we make a recommendation, we put it all together in a big report, and we send it to them monthly, and we say, we owe them X number of dollars, or we think we do you agree? And they say yes or no. 99 times out of 100, they say yes. So sometimes they have questions, sometimes we make a mistake on a deductible, or coverage limit, or they disagree with our recommendation for some other reason. But by and large, we don't have problems getting things approved. But I want to make clear that we don't have settlement authority. That goes back to the reinsurance panel. So in this case, with this claim, it's a bit different because we're not reaching an agreement with you all on the cost of the project before. We're doing that concurrent with you all estimating and building your project, so it's a little bit different. We are estimating, or we estimated the replacement costs of the 2 schools that you had, and then we're making adjustments to those estimates based upon your bid prices. Okay, and we'll explain that in a minute. So that process is a little bit different than the way it would normally work if, for instance, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I want to make it relatable. If you have a roof loss, if you have a hailstorm that comes through and it damages your roof, then your adjuster and your contractor, they come out there, they meet, they measure it out, they scope it out, they agree on what the damage is. We put together our heads and we come up with a price. We shake a hand on that, we issue a check, and that's the end of it at that point. This is a little bit different because we don't know what the costs are up front, and we're continuing to work with you all to try and bump up our estimates as much as we can, because what you're doing is a little bit different than what you had. And you're making changes, and that's perfectly fine. But we have to pay for what you have. You can't pay for something that you don't have, in essence. I'll talk a little bit about the rebuild estimate. This is an ever-changing estimate. I'll tell you how we started with it. The initial, here you can see, is the initial rebuild estimate prepared as part of the claims process mentioned in the previous slides. We completed this in January of 2024. We based our estimates on information gathered from the several inspections that we completed out here following the loss, and we also used drawings that were provided to us of the original Crestview Elementary and Middle Schools. So we basically did takeoffs of what you had, and we did the best we could to estimate that in today's dollars. And I'll tell you how we did that. We put together what's known as a CSI estimate. CSI stands for Construction Specifications Institute. A CSI estimate is a detailed, comprehensive cost estimate comprised of individual trade costs using unit pricing from RS Means. RS Means provides construction cost data and estimating tools widely used throughout the industry. EBI prepared their estimate in the CSI format, which is the standard format that contractors use. The prices are based on unit costs from the current version of RS Means. RS Means is the industry standard source for published construction costs. It provides unit costs for each component of the building. On this slide, you can see the unit in column A. Andy, will you zoom out on that, please? You can see the unit in column A, the unit type in column B, and the unit cost in column C, with the result in column D. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes, sir.
Was this at a fixed rate when you did your means analysis, or are you using the updates with means as you go along? Means constantly updates the valuations depending on geographic areas and stuff.
We've updated the pricing a couple times. We're essentially using the real live data now to update our costs, right? So we did this as an exercise to try and put a baseline on the claim, not a ceiling, but a floor. Okay, we knew at a minimum this is what it would cost, right, to replace what you had. But it was never meant to say this is all you're gonna get. So at some point, using RS Means data becomes
Irrelevant.
irrelevant to some degree because we're taking live costs in and adjusting as needed. Did you have something else?
No, that's it.
Okay, but does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now the incurred cost review. As an example, we will take early release package number 1. On this slide, you will see the information provided by Linkus in the form of the Chancellor Brothers bid breakdowns. Additional information was required beyond the bid breakdown provided, resulting in an additional $1,310,272 on top of the original DBI CSI estimate. So I want to demonstrate that to you to show you what we're doing. We looked at one early release package, and we determined that we owed an additional $1.3 million for that one specific trade, okay? We engaged Thornton Tomasetti, which is an international engineering firm, to review and help identify code-related requirements and other modifications to our original estimate. You all encountered some problems out there that we wouldn't have known about in our original estimating. I don't think you all knew about them. And you had to do some modifications to the soil. So we understood that. Once we got more information on it, we increased our numbers accordingly. Additionally, we have increased the exterior wall height at the gym, as it was a recommended design attribute and is needed in order to host tournaments per A2H, resulting in an additional $66,000, okay? A review of the soil conditions and the methods needed for betterment of the grounds for replacement of the original Crespi schools was performed by our engineers at Thornton Tomasetti, resulting in an additional $644,700. So we've come up, the original estimate that we prepared was $44,155,944. We have increased that by roughly $66,000, $1.3 million, and $650,000. And so the revised totals are $46,176,893. That's not near $65 million, but it's closer than where we were, all right? And this is we're just getting started. So I'm not gonna tell you that we will reach the $65 million that you're gonna incur, because it includes some changes in there that you didn't have. But we're gonna get closer to that. But it is a time-consuming and information-dependent process. And as Chairman Schenkel mentioned earlier, we're gonna start, I believe, seeing some considerable pay-apps come through the door. And the money that we have received from the insurers is about $35 million. We will have roughly $46 million. But I have to do my best to try and keep up. At some point, we will run out of money. Okay, and that's why the information sharing is such an important piece of this, because it's a long process for me to then report, to analyze it, formulate it into a understandable report that goes to 50 different people across the globe, and then they all pay their $8 share, right? And I'm being facetious, but they all have somebody will owe $100,000 and somebody will owe $3 million. They all have different percentages as to what their participation is. And we have to wait for all that money to come in. Everybody has to wire transfer it in. And it will be 17, 18, 19 different wire transfers. Before we can send that money to you, we have to collect it from overseas. And it is a very cumbersome process. And anything more than what I asked for in the CSI estimate that we've done, I have to support it. I'm not saying that the CSI estimate is correct. I'm saying that's the best information that I have at this point, okay? And I think we've shown certainly tonight, or I hope I've demonstrated, that we have made modifications in y'all's favor anywhere we could based upon what we've got so far. So the next slide that Andy's pulled up, this is the cost review process status. We have looked at 5% roughly of the anticipated cost. So that means we've got 95% to go. All of the trades will go through a process similar to that of the site work review that we completed, the ones that I just detailed. With the additional reviews, we expect to have updates to our recommended value. It's not gonna keep up with the way that you're spending the money. We're not gonna know what our claim value is until y'all's project is finished, because we're gonna be evaluating documentation well after you're finished, from what I can tell. All right, so I want everyone to be aware of that, and I know Dr. Combs is aware of it, and the mayor, but at some point, my funding for you all, the money that we're holding in escrow for you all, will be exhausted. Now, that's not to say that there won't be more money that comes back at some point in the future, but you're gonna be spending it in clips quicker than I can replenish it and get you a final number. I'm not going to know, I fully anticipate that you all will have spent more than what you will spend it sooner than I can tell you what the final number is gonna be. You'll be finished with the project, in all likelihood, before we finally reconcile what all we owe you. So how you essentially float that gap, I don't know.
Mr. Gill?
Can I ask Lucas?
Yes, Mr. Gill?
Linkus, or not Linkus, I'm sorry, my GMP, I'm trying to get everybody situated here. Will that affect our timeline? Cause I know how pay apps were, or is that gonna affect the schedule?
If we're not getting paid?
Yes. I'm putting it on the record, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, that would have an effect. I mean, if we can't pay our subcontractors, they're not gonna continue.
Absolutely, 100%. We will take care.
We're not self-performing any of this, so it's all subcontractors and vendors.
I just make sure I was on the record. And then I guess the chain of command here, how are we, I heard a little bit of that a few months ago, but how are we communicating the needs that you need from what we're gathering out in the field from our subcontractor? How's the flow go?
I mean, Linkus is quarterbacking it, the documents, we had that conversation again today, I'm trying to get Mr. Houston all the documents that he needs for, what he's doing. But other than that, I mean, Linkus is quarterbacking the project.
I have a question as well, and
Yes,
to piggyback off that as well, and I mean, we're at 5%, I mean, that's concerning. It's very concerning, and it goes back to the question of, are we getting, I'm not saying that Linkus by no means is getting the documents, right? We understand that your process is lengthy. From the emails that I've kind of been on, and just seeing is there is a disconnect here at some point within the, by the time you're emailing, I think 4 or 5 times you've asked for certain information.
Yes.
Now, whether Linkus understands that request or has just not gotten it at that point or did not have it, I feel like I'm probably tracking with Mr. Gill is we've got to get in a room and we've got to figure this out. I assume, we just got the GMP, so we got all the final, I understand the early release packages. We had those were early on, and we just got the GMP, so we got all the subcontractors, we got all their numbers, so we should have everything tabulated at this point, I would say, 3 or 4 weeks now, right? So we should be able to get those unit prices fairly simple from our for the subs, I would assume.
What we need to, like I said earlier, what we need, because this school has different materials on there, because those schools were built a long time ago, they may not have the same structural features.
We requested, Preston actually has requested numerous times a matrix from DBI, just show us what they want, which unit cost, masonry, provide us a matrix, and we haven't received it.
Charles, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we basically want the breakdown of the subs cost. I mean, we haven't done a full takeoff of the new design to figure out what's in there. So
Well,
we're
I'm not
looking for
talking
the unit cost that your subs put together, and I know that, and as I said to Preston in the meeting, I know that every sub puts things together in a different way. So whatever they can give us to break down their unit cost that they bid the project on, that's what we're looking for.
I don't think that's what was requested. We were at, you guys asked for units so you could update your estimate. Your estimate isn't based on this new school. Your estimate is based on the old school. So we need to know what units, and if they align, and to give you what the current value, what the bid rates are for that. So that's what we need. If there's 4-inch block you need for your purpose, we'll give you whatever, but we said on the front end we would do that. And y'all said y'all would give us a matrix of what you were after. Cause you asked, sometimes you ask like the generator, for instance. You had asked, and I remember there was talk about 8 different things. What's one generator? We go out and get a price for one generator. So the price that we got up here for the generator is what it is. I mean, it's a off the shelf. Here you go, here's the generator. I don't know how much more we can break that down. But there are some things we can. We just need that information to help you do your side of it. So
Here's where I'm at, for the sake of just us not, before we going back and forth here, and we can make some traction here, is obviously there's a disconnect. I think that there's quite a bit of disconnect between what you guys are requiring and what obviously Lincoln, I think, can require, but maybe what they're not requiring, or maybe they just don't understand the full scope. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is Board of Education, we're building a building, right? Or the county's building a building, we got to have money, right? We want the best money out of it as quick as we can get it out of you. You need information. So what I'm getting at is we need to collaborate. Somebody needs to collaborate. We need to get in a room, whether it takes 2 or 3 days, and get this solidified. I mean, we've got the numbers, so I don't think we're waiting on any numbers. I don't know, hopefully y'all would agree, Hunter. I don't know if this is part of Dr. Combs. I hope I'm not stepping on anything, but I mean, I see a meeting together. If we meet down in Lincoln or somebody, and we get in here and we just hash this out as, what is it Giles, what is it we specifically need? And that way there's no back and forth emails. That's my suggestion here.
I do think, and y'all are probably just as frustrated as we are, we just trade a lot of emails, right? And we're missing something. So, let's figure out a face-to-face.
We're available, absolutely. I mean, whatever's best for this project. I understand the need, timeliness, in the response, so.
Yeah.
I agree.
And just one thing, it's not that, I know we're asking for a lot of information, and probably more than you would normally provide on this. That's part of the beast of this process, right? And as the primary funding mechanism for it, we're just gonna have to do it. I don't like going back and asking you for the same thing, or whatever. I don't like doing that. It is a lot of analysis on our part, and there are a lot of people that have to sign off on it. And because of the value of the loss, it receives an extraordinary amount of scrutiny. And it also, not only when you deliver the document, let's say you got everything to us tomorrow, and we fulfilled it, and we never had to speak about it again. I'd still have 90 days or 120 days of putting all this together before I got this to where I could make another payment recommendation of any sizable amount to get them to send more money. Because what one of the problems is that we've got the money sitting over here. The carriers are not going to send any more money until you exhaust the majority of what you've got on hand. So I've got to time it to try and fund you guys, or this project, at the same time that you're spending it. And at some point, my timing's not gonna work out. And we've just got to get past this back and forth of the document order. And we'll get offline and figure out a time where we can come over here and break bread with y'all.
Well, if I may ask you a
Yes.
question, because I'm coming
Yes.
in late.
Yes.
Are we involved with construction progress, or?
Uh,
This is concerning to me, because we're getting in the winter, the money's not gonna be flowing, and we're not gonna make all. I'm just trying to be agreeable with the
Mr.
situation.
McCann, you have a comment?
I'm good right now. I mean, I will say one example like that estimate, we're working off of that 44 million, because I broke that down. If you take just that concrete that was in the estimate, it came to like $11 a foot. When I was looking at that document up there on our actual GMP, I think it had at 21.45. So that's a big thing right there. I think now that we got that GMP, there's some things you can't argue. I mean, the square foot only changed 1%. Concrete's concrete. It's a hard bid. I mean, so I think we can rectify, we're gonna know what that number needs to be a lot quicker. We'll know. Now, how long it takes you to send that out to your people and get back, that's kind of on you, but as far as us here, we got a school to build, so we got kids, so
That's what
we can't, we can't slow these guys down any,
That's what
I
I was gonna
agree,
say
but
about
is
the
the money gonna keep?
but the money's gotta come in. He's got replacement costs. I mean, he's got a liability. He's saying they're estimating way low. They're estimating at the floor. He knows it's gonna go up.
My concern is the lag time that we're having right now. And I'll help. I'm just saying, better construction progress meetings, better time, whatever we need to do. I mean, I'm all in as well. I'm not sure how we're doing that.
So, Mr. Gill, thank you for your question. Mr. McCain, you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay. Dr. Combs, we had discussed, and I think there is a construction meeting once a month with Linkus. You
We
guys-
have a monthly call.
I know there's a OAE meeting as well, correct? Is there any possibility we could have, is there any with DBI and them on that meeting as well, just so they're, can we?
That is, the school decides who,
Absolutely.
Okay.
whoever Dr. Combs and Hunter tells me to be in that meeting.
Absolutely.
Is that
they'll be
fair?
in the meeting.
Hunter, so we can have that, but then also with the construction meeting, I know Mr. McCann was voted on as the liaison there, but would it be beneficial if, from the new school board members, you know, since we don't have to waste our time here for 2 hours and nothing, would it be beneficial for us to be a part of that meeting, so we're up to grade as well, up to speed as
I
well?
mean, they're
Because-
recorded, you know what I mean? It's not, I mean, it's,
Fair enough, but I mean, I feel like
Hard to ask
questions,
questions on the
I feel like big questions should be asked, so we don't get into this, is because I agree here, is that the money, I mean, and I don't know, speaking for Mr. Daughtery, but if we run out of money, we're, you know, and we're lagging 6-7 months, we got a problem.
I think I don't think we need to worry about that much. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna work its way out.
Well, and we have, how much, let me say this, Mr. Houston, when you presented back, dang, it's all right, March, February, whenever
10
that
years ago.
was, 10 years ago. I mean, you basically told us in that meeting, you told the board at that time, look, you have this much money in the bank. You have 40 or whatever million it was to spend. Was that not the
You've
presentation?
got,
What you
yeah.
told the group?
Yes, let me make one caveat to that. You've got mid-30s, I'd have to see where it is. They pay it at actual cash value, if you remember that. And then as you start to eat into the depreciation that was applied,
Right.
there's more. You will have, right now, you've got a total of about $47 million that we've supported for this, okay? I don't have $47 million on hand, though. So I need to front-run I'm gonna try and grab the depreciation back from the market, from the insurance panel, so that I can get that, and then we can start adding more to it as we find, just like with this earthwork stuff, where we added almost $2 million to it.
Well, and Chairman, that was kind of my, for Mr. McCann's sake and for Mr. Gill's sake, that's kind of, when that first presentation came, it's like, look, you basically have, this is what you have to work with at this time. It's a floor, not a ceiling. You've got this movement. That's what was presented originally.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's, money it's not like we're gonna spend $10 million and we're dead in the water tomorrow.
Right.
That money's there. Now, what we're
We have
trying to
about
figure out
$35 million
is the gap.
Correct, and, yeah, I agree. And to end this discussion, I guess, real quick but we're fixing to have some significant pay apps, I would assume, coming in. Yes, yes. Mr.
I feel the need to address Mr. Gill's comment, because I wanna make sure I understood. There's no lag time, we haven't stopped. Just because we're working this out, our construction has never, what halted our progress is finding all the water in the site and having to do 1,700 geopiers. That's what halted the progress, but this process and Houston giving a presentation and us, we're not stopping construction, that's not holding up anything.
Will you get to
I
that
just
point
wanted-
if we continue with in those payables?
Well,
And you can the two
Again,
keep
this-
up with each other is my question.
yeah, you're right, the subcontractors aren't gonna work if they don't get paid.
And that's right,
fact.
so I'm on a federal project right now, and they demob.
Yeah.
And you're not telling everybody, but it costs a lot of money to remobilize. Will the carrier cover that?
I don't think we're gonna slow down that construction.
Well,
We got too big obligation to get the schools open.
We understand the construction, but the payment on the construction is the question at mine.
We
And
know
so
there's gonna be a shortfall, how do we fix it?
there's a shortfall, but not only that, there's also a lag time in us getting the money for the insurance, and so that's vitally important. So that's why I'm just proposing is, and let's hash this out, whatever it takes from, represent the Board of Education, represent our Tipton County Schools. I want the schools built back just as quick as well, and on time and on budget. and understand you have a process as well, so we need to do everything we can, because right now, you're writing the checks, so we need to do.
Support you however we can.
Exactly.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I wanna say that, at some point, there will be a deficit, right? There will be a delta, there will be a difference of whatever you wanna call it. How much that is, I don't know. I know at some point, the money for the insurance claim will be exhausted. And we may have some cleanup to do at the end to try and reconcile what additional amounts may be owed. But it's not going to keep up. At some point, you guys are going to have to be ready with dry powder to pay them. Now, how much you have to pay them, I don't know yet, okay? It could be $5 million, it could be $20 million. I have no idea. I know where my number is right now, and I know where yours is right now, okay? And so it's about $19 million, right?
Yeah, so we're not gonna be 20 because we know we're going up, so that's what I'm saying. Maybe it could be 5 million. I don't think the 20 would be a good estimate to say we're gonna be 20 million.
Well,
I know.
I'm speaking loosely.
Well, but I know, but they're taking it as we're $20 million short.
No,
We're not.
the problem I'm having is with the cash flow.
Yeah, sure.
Do we have the money to cash flow this while we wait on the insurer?
We have it in fund balance.
Yep.
I mean, there's
Are
some,
we
I mean, I'm not
comfortable
trying to keep Billy from fainting when I say that. Yeah, I mean, there's money that, you know, we could pull if we, you know, if there's, you know, not a bond or anything. I mean, we have, there are some other things we won't be able to do, but, I mean,
But again,
You
the
can certainly look
concern
at
is, and again, I'm new to the game, but we utilize that money and then you realize once you run the numbers, we're not getting all that money back.
Yeah, or we realize that we may owe you, I don't know, $3 million after we clean it all up.
One was,
We're gonna meet again, probably for the next year or year and a half, I would think on this. You know, if y'all are on start target for August, right, then we're probably not gonna know until this time next year or towards the end of the year, once we finally do all of our stuff, how much our claim value is. And so that's the biggest concern that I have for the board, is that at some point, we won't be able to fund it anymore, because we're gonna have to go back. We may still owe you more money, but I gotta go get it, right? And I would be delinquent if I didn't tell you that now. At some point, you will have to pay out of pocket. Now, how much of that I pay you back is yet to be determined. But I do think at some point that the funds will be exhausted. And I don't know, Rusty, we can give, this is something I wanted to, Giles and I were talking about earlier. It'd be helpful maybe in the next week or so if we connect on what you think your pay app requests are gonna be.
Oh, you mean just cash flow?
Yeah, give you some kind of, I'm not trying to hold you to that, but some kind of analysis where I can, so I can at least maybe say, look, we know, if we can get that in the pipeline, then I can get the depreciation back.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Estes, do you have anything else to present at this time?
I don't, no,
All
sir,
right,
unless
thank
you all have something.
Well, any questions from Mr. Estes or Mr. Giles or Mr. Blankus or his group?
Sir,
When's the next construction meeting?
the on-site meeting is Queen Hunter, the next OAC
Tuesday for the owners,
Tuesday.
next Tuesday for the owners.
Next Tuesday for the owners and the next,
And then the
On-site.
insurance meeting should be the following, is it the following Thursday or?
Yeah, what is it, 25th? 26th?
I think it is the 20th.
It's not this next week, y'all, it's the week after. It's Wednesday, it's 2 Wednesdays from now, I think.
and so I think a couple things on the table and we'll end it here unless somebody else has anything is I think we probably need to check with our attorney to make sure that it's okay for us to be, you know, in a certain meeting, you know, there's certain laws we have to follow to
Yes,
make
sir.
sure that, you know, who's in there and stuff like that. I know Mr. McCann's a liaison there, so we gotta check that out, but also is I think there's a separate meeting too, is where we can get the Linkage crew together, DDI together, let's have a work session or whatnot, let's hash this out, you know, so we can get this thing rolling.
Yes, sir.
That would be my suggestion. Dr. Combs?
Yes, sir.
Hunter?
I'm good with it, guys.
Yeah.
Trust me, we're ready to get this thing going.
I know you are. I know you are.
And the mayor's on board with it too. We
Okay,
talked about it the
excellent.
other day. Yes, sir.
Excellent, okay.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any questions?
I second all of that.
You see? All right, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Estes,
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
all. Yes, sir, thank you.
Oh, yes, and we are teachers, we're sorry for the teachers, sorry, we've got other teachers waiting, so
You know,
thank you for that.
I'm
We're gonna move forward
I'm off
with
the,
the meeting, yes.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Bird?
Promise I'll go fast. Okay, I want to start, as I always do, with our American Fidelity Teacher of the Month. We recognize, for you new board members, we recognize one Teacher of the Month, and it's sponsored by American Fidelity. So, I will start with that tonight. Perhaps I should wait just a minute.
Thank you.
She's been patiently waiting in the back. Miss Ainsley Garrett, come on down. Ainsley and I go way back. Our kids are friends, and she was the librarian when I was principal at Choke Elementary School. But she's at Brighton High School now. This is her principal, of course, Mr. Croson. And in his nomination, he said about Miss Garrett, Miss Garrett is one of the most selfless people I know, and I would amen that. She goes above and beyond each day to ensure our students and faculty have everything they need. She takes care of all of the Chromebook issues, that's our student devices, teacher technology issues, and ensures that students have all of their needed resources. Plus, she has to keep the library organized and running smoothly for students and teachers. Ms. Garrett has never told anyone no. She always goes the extra mile. Brighton High School is very lucky to have her in our building, so we want to say congratulations to Ms. Garrett. And I hope you don't have early duty. Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Crescent. The only other thing I have is each month, we offer the board members an opportunity to bring up any policy in certain sections. We review those every year. And this month is section 2, which is fiscal management. If there are any policies that someone would like to bring to the table now, we can discuss those, or I can prepare information for you if you would like. If not, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna belabor them. I do have several different comments,
Okay.
but for sake of time,
Yes, sir.
can we table that for another time, discussion, or
Yeah,
I just have numerous ones, and for the sake of time tonight, since we've taken it up, there are numerous things that I'd like to talk about and just ask,
Okay.
but.
so what you could do is if you'd like to email those to me, I can prepare you a written response, and then I would send that to all board members. You know, we can't deliberate
Right.
that, but we can disseminate information if that's how you would like for us to do that.
And then
It's up to you.
could we pick that back up at the next board meeting, and
You
then,
wanna
and
do
then,
section 2 next month?
well,
instead of section 3?
I'm just discussion here, I don't wanna say anything for anybody else, but that would be my suggestion. I have a list of just things just to talk about and discuss, just on the policy side, so, I can send you a list of things as well, and then we can talk about that, and maybe do 2 and 3 next month, possibly.
Wherever you would like,
Okay.
yes.
So, I guess I make a motion to
We don't have to have a motion.
table that, okay.
We don't have to have a motion.
Oh, so that's not a motion that you, okay, sounds
No,
good, thank you.
Can
I
I
don't
make
think
a
it's
suggestion?
necessary.
Yes,
Yeah, can I make a suggestion?
yes.
Also, work sessions are great, and I know that, Mr. Billy's really good at like breaking that thing down and having like a work session. Anytime that y'all wanna have, a work session, right? You could have a work session specifically dedicated to going through that budget with a fine tooth comb. And then, that may even be a good time too, to throw in some of those questions that you have with regard to fiscal. Like, cause I know he's already mentioned wanting to do that, especially with, the number of, new folks we have on the board. So, that's a good thing too. So anytime y'all wanna schedule one of those, we're more than welcome to do it.
And we can do that at any point.
At any point, we have to give the appropriate, notice to the media so they can get out to, cause it's a public meeting, so we have to notify 7 days. And so y'all just, decide what you wanna do and we'll set it up and give the notice in the paper.
I like that.
I would like to see a monthly work session on the budget if possible, or some type, and maybe I'm talking to Billy here, maybe this is for later on, but I know we're in fiscal policy, but I would like to see maybe a finance committee meeting or some type of work session where we're working together and looking at that budget and looking at the expenses versus the revenues per month, rather than just, not saying being blindsided here, but I'm sure I'm gonna have to vote on a budget at some point every month. It would be nice to be able to sit down and talk about those things, especially of large expenditures. And I would also say is, especially if we're going to have, if there is a shortfall with this building project or whatever, it would be nice to be able to sit around and talk about that, you know, when we have a little bit of time to do, so I'm
I'm gonna
Bring
bring
that.
that up in my report too.
sounds good, thank you.
So, if you want to email me questions from
Will do.
sections 2 and 3, I will prepare remarks, and would you like me to email you those remarks, or just save that for the next meeting?
You can email, it'll be fine, thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Otherwise,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. James Fields.
Mr. Chair, I don't have anything pressing tonight, and for the second time, because I would like to yield my time to Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Fields,
Unless y'all have any particular questions for me.
thank you, Mr. Fields. Mr. Fields, use this time to, Mr. Daugherty.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Congratulations to each one of you. I look forward to working with you. As you're aware, one of the major responsibilities that you have, your major 3 responsibilities, is the budget. And certainly one of the largest. The county passed a $179 million budget in July. 62% of that you're responsible for. We as a team are responsible for. So there's a folder that we keep inside of your board packet. If you'll go out to the main folder, like where it says board meeting shared folder. A number of months ago, I have a folder right there that says finance resources. And so inside that folder is a lot of resources on TISA, internal school funds, school support organizations, and all things that govern education finance. And it's a lot of material to learn, so it's out there for you to read at your pleasure. But I would encourage you at some point to take a look through there at some of those figures. And to go off what we were saying earlier, in the past, I've scheduled work sessions with the board to go over the budget, and so we can kind of do a breakdown of how everything is set up. And Mr. Chairman, it's my recommendation, that we, schedule a work session the week of September the 23rd, if this board's able to do that, and we should allow 2 to 3 hours for that at least. One reason I wanna do that, is because the County Commission Finance Committee meets the first Monday of every month. So used to, they would meet the night of the commission meeting, but they changed it to the Monday prior. So what's happened, when you all make amendments, now it takes 5 weeks to make the cycle to get back to the county commission, right? So we wanna stay on top of those, and this is the time of year where there's grant carryover funding and a lot of things that are coming in. Usually you all are really busy right after the budget in the months of September and October passing amendments. And so I'd like to present a lot of these amendments after our finance or during our finance work session. Such a great time to actually see it in action. And you can pass those amendments for us to take to the October meeting at the same time learning the budget. So, Mr. Chairman, I would make a request that a motion be made to schedule that work session for one day in the week of the 23rd, 2 to 3 hours. And I can clear my calendar for whenever you all are available.
Do we have a motion? Motion. Jenkins, we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lavelle, Mr. Lavelle got it, I believe.
And one of the reasons I say that, Mr. Chairman, because y'all, if y'all do that, you've got to budget money to pay yourself to be here because it's outside of your 12 meetings, right? So we'll have to come back and adjust that as well. So every time you have a work session, we'll have to budget money to pay the fees for the board.
Make sure, in a work session, make sure I'm right now for the group, they can participate, listen up, but there's no voting that takes place in a work session, or is that?
Depends on how they set
correct?
the meeting, but if
Okay.
you wanna make it a voted meeting, we can do that, like a budget meeting like you were talking about earlier. And I would recommend that for the week of the 23rd. It's gonna be an instructional meeting, but we wanna take up amendments too that we can take to the county commission in October. So I would prefer it be a meeting where you can do business.
Open meeting
An
in order
open meeting to
to
vote.
make any votes.
Okay, and again, I can clear any of this that y'all need me to, you just ask me and I'll check with attorney if there's any questions, and we'll just make sure it's how y'all need it.
Could we not establish a finance committee?
Absolutely. That's the
So,
board.
so this is, hold on, motion's on the floor for a, yeah, now we get into parliamentary procedures here. Motion's on the floor that we have a work session, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you're do we have, that would be the work session there, do we have any discussion based off the work session for the 23rd? How does that work for people's calendars? What are we, any discussions on there for just the work session at this point? I have a question, can we, I'll be out of town that day, can we,
Well, it's any day that week.
Oh, the week of the
The week of
23rd,
the
not just the.
23rd. So
We
that's
can do it
why we
like
pick Thursday,
Thursday.
Friday.
Okay,
We can do it like
okay,
the
yeah,
26th
Thursday.
or something.
Do we need to set that now, or do we need to set that
Yeah.
now?
We need to be able to look at our calendars.
I would agree with that, yeah, so, can we come back to that? Like, let everybody look at their calendars, and can we get an
We can coordinate a time.
Can we do that? Okay, so, we'll coordinate a time, date, because I understand that's busy, it's really short order, so, now, do we have all in favor of the work session the week of the 23rd, or at this point? Let's say aye. Any noes? Motion passed. Mr. Gill, you've had discussion on,
I'm reading up on it real quick, but I have a belief that, with everything that we have going on, all the moving parts and pieces with the finance stuff, I'd be better educated if we had a committee that could bring recommendations to the board here.
are you bringing that in the form of a motion?
I would.
Mr.
I'll
Neal,
second that.
can you, Mr. Gray states it, or seconds it, so the motion is that the Board of Education or the school board, make a finance committee, is that correct, or formulate a finance committee, is that the correct motion?
That is correct.
Any discussion?
I'd like Billy's input, what do you think about having a finance committee?
I wanna educate y'all as much as I can. It's a big budget, a lot of moving parts, and, it's a very fluid budget. Obviously, things are changing because our dynamics follow the kids. And so whatever this board deems appropriate, I'm fine with. Just know that if you establish meetings, I don't know the legality. We, an attorney, would have to give an opinion on establishing a finance committee. I don't know any restrictions that you couldn't, don't know that you can. But you'll have to also budget to pay those committee members to do those meetings as well. And so, all that needs to be taken into account and a legal opinion rendered, I would say. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an open meeting to do this first budget dive, and I think we should go ahead and do that. There's business waiting to be done
Agree.
that can't be done tonight that we need to get done in a work session.
Agree.
Open meeting.
It'd be better to maybe take it under advisement, I guess. is
The
what you're
finance
saying.
committee part, but I don't want to hold up on the meeting though.
So,
Most
discussion.
committees, and I'm on quite a few, there's no deliberation, it's just bringing a recommendation to the board. You hear a little bit more of the robust, the details, if that's what you're after.
any other discussion? I think Mr. McCann has brought it under advisement. Yes, Dr.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Chair, I can look into all that for you, like the legalities and how TSB and everybody has it set up, and I'll email all that to you so that y'all can discuss the whole, like, committee set up next, because probably more than just a finance committee you wanna do. There are other committees you can do as well, so I'll send all that out in an email to y'all, and then so y'all can discuss it at the October meeting if that's appropriate.
So at this point, we're taking it under advisement, that motion, is that correct, Mr. McCann? Is that what you-
Yes.
I don't think we need any ayes and nays on that, so, okay,
Just need to confirm we'll have a meeting the week of the 23rd.
we'll work on, that, thank you, we'll work on that.
All right, next item. All right, in your finance folder, if you'll, go, there's a folder that's titled Contract for Audit. Pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-2112, which I've included in that packet, you as the local board of education are called to, have an annual audit to be made of the accounts and records of all schools under your jurisdiction, that receive and disperse funds. And in addition to that, pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 12-3-1209, the services by professional persons or group of high ethical standards must not be based upon competitive solicitation, but must be awarded on the basis of recognized competence and integrity. In this regard, the district contracted for many years with Whitehorn, Tankersley, and Davis CPAs. Now, recently, ATA acquired Whitehorn, Tankersley, and Davis CPAs, and they are doing our audits currently. They're a qualified leading tax accounting and advisory firm that represents hundreds of governmental clients. Copies of the statutes that I mentioned are included in your packet, along with some guidance from the internal school manual, which is known as the Blue Book or the Blue Bible for internal school manual, and the Comprehensive Business Local Government Audit. The contract to audit must be awarded and finalized by September 30th by law. And so, Mr. Chairman, I request that the board allow the appropriate individuals to execute a contract this year with ATA to audit the internal school and USDA funds for fiscal year 25 in the amount of $55,500 for the audit fee, $5,000 for the USDA procedures, plus any additional travel costs associated with the audit process.
Do we have a motion to accept that? Ms. Eubanks has a motion, we have a second? Second, Mr. Edwards? Do we have any discussion on that? I assume that price is budgeted, correct? I
That's
assume
correct,
that audit price is budgeted.
So for this year, we estimated it to be $60,000 in the budget, so we have $60,000 budgeted for, it's gonna be $60,500 at the
Okay.
point, but we'll have to make some tweaks on that.
Sounds good. Yeah, ATA is a good company, so I would agree. So, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, sir. If we can move on to the folder that is titled SSO Annual Verification Paperwork. If you'll click inside that folder, Tennessee Code Annotated 492110, Tennessee Code Annotated 492604, the SSO Manual and Policy 2.404, all in that packet are in there as they relate to school board or school support organizations. And tonight we have 4 SSOs requesting permission to be authorized to operate in fiscal year 25, and they are as follows. The Atoka Elementary School PTO, the Brighton Middle School PTO, the Covington High School FFA alumni, and the Mumford Elementary School PTO. Mr. Chairman, I request a motion to approve these 4 organizations to be authorized to be school support organizations in fiscal year 25.
Do we have a motion to accept these SSO?
Make a motion.
Mr. McCann has a motion. Have a second? Ms. Reed? Ms. Reed? We have any discussion? Any questions? Comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, also, there were previous discussions by the prior board where they asked us to take a look into offering sick leave for some employees that don't currently receive it. I'm not sure this board's position or how you want that handled tonight, or if you want to push that off, but I wanted to bring that back because it was discussed in the last meeting.
Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yes,
real
sir.
quick?
So our bus drivers do not receive sick leave. They do receive health insurance as an incentive for their contracts. Our part-time food service workers and part-time employees in general don't receive sick leave. Our full-time food service workers accrue sick leave. And so the question was made by, I believe it was Mr. Farrell asked, or Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins asked us to look into it and to see kind of what a cost would be or to how we would address that really. And so with this new board and new members, I think we should probably readdress it. And it may be one of those things you want to address in this finance meeting because GASB 101 just passed. And so we're going to have to start carrying accrued leave on our balance sheet, our liabilities. And so there's some things we need to discuss that will cost some money. And so we need to put that in context with everything else if we're going to consider that.
Mr. Jenkins, do you have any comments or anything on that since you brought the motion? Are we, any discussion on that? Do we want to take that to under advisement and take it to the finance workshop?
Take it to the workshop.
I think we'll,
I'm good with that.
I don't think we have a motion there. I mean, we will move forward to the finance.
sir.
Yep, we'll push it on.
Right.
Thank you.
And then the last thing I just wanted to bring your attention to inside your packet there are the financial reports for the month of August. You'll find those, there are 4 funds you all are responsible for. We'll break this down further later, but you'll see this. 141 is your general purpose school fund. 142 is your school federal projects fund. 143 is your central cafeteria fund. And 177 is your education capital projects fund. And you'll see those numbers on the top of those reports. And the main thing that you're really looking for in those, I would submit, are the revenues and expenditures. How much money did we bring in? How much money did we spend? What are our account balances, right? What is our cash flow? And so those are those documents that you're looking at. And we'll delve into these further as well in our meeting. I'll kind of like break it down for you and explain it to you how we track that and what that looks like from the 30,000 PPU as well as the context of the finance committee. So, Mr. Chairman, I just asked that they, let's spread on my report. All right?
Yep, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, the last thing I'll take up that wasn't included tonight, and we'll have a lot more discussion about this, but the question was asked to be, how are we going to finance this gap that's coming, right? We have to worry about cash flow, and so we have to, GFOA recommends that you have 2 months worth of operating expenses in your fund balance, minimum. And so for us, that's 18 to 20 million. You don't wanna get below that because you've gotta remember in June, we make a payroll of $16 million when we pay out these contracts, and we still gotta keep the lights on. So we need a little more than that, in my opinion. I would like to see 3 months, but that's not possible right now. I checked, when we closed the books in August, our fund balance was right around $26 million. So, this board financed the interim structures till we got FEMA reimbursement. So I feel comfortable if there's a gap at the end that we might be able to bankroll some of it. What I wanna remind you all, it's not the school board's responsibility to build schools, it's the county's responsibility to build schools. And so now, can we be team players and put up some money if we know the insurance, like Houston said earlier, is coming back with this payment later on? I mean, that's something we can look at our position at that time. If nothing else has happened, fund balance is in good shape, you all can make that decision. The other thing I want you to be aware of is you delve into this county government thing. Counties are required to establish a debt service fund, okay? And a debt service fund is just what it sounds like. you pay debt with it. Now, Tipton County is very fortunate that we don't have debt, but 6 cents of the tax rate in Tipton County funds the debt service fund. The current debt service fund in Tipton County has a fund balance, I believe, I can look it up, but I believe the fund balance is $6 million, or will be by the end of this fiscal year. That 6 cents on the tax rate this fiscal year generates $1.2 million in debt service money. So I say that to say, when we have our communications, you all have your communications with the county officials, there's $6 million in debt service to meet a gap. So if it comes out that it's more than our fund balance can cash, or maybe we can come up with a couple million, maybe they can come up with a couple million. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying these are things that need to be brought to the table to talk about. That money's there. And so I anticipate, you heard from Rusty in Houston, we're probably looking at 18 months, before we get to the end of this as far as paying for it. So that we're gonna be out of this fiscal year. We're gonna be into a new fiscal year. So that means all the revenue from the debt service fund for this year is gonna be established. We'll know what that is. And then the next year is gonna be budgeted again. So will that go up on the tax rate? Will it go down? But that's something for the county to anticipate. I just want you to know there are some things out there for you all to consider. I don't think the walls are falling down. Now, I do think we need to be conservative in the way we approach that, and so make sure that we have that money. I don't think there's gonna be, this is my personal opinion, I don't know anything about construction, I'll let you talk to Hunter about that. I just don't think this gap's gonna be that big at the end. When we get to the end, I don't think, in talking to Houston and talking to all the folks involved, there's not that many changes in the buildings other than code upgrades, right? And so what's that gonna look like in dollars? We've already seen the price drop, and we're locked in, right? So if we had been on the other side of this from 24 months ago, I'd be a little more concerned. But I feel like that gap at the end, if it's anything, I think it's gonna be small, and we might even come out, you heard Houston say it, where they owe us money in the end, right? And so this may not even be an issue. But now we're watching for the issue. I'm preparing for us at that point, but the school's construction, if you look back across all the school construction, none of it has ever been financed in the school budget. It's financed in the county's budget through debt service. So we don't budget for school construction. Now, that doesn't say that we can't front projects. You all have a wonderful capital projects plan. Mr. McKenna and others can tell you, y'all will look at it. Dr. Combs sits down and meets with y'all and comes up with a 5-year plan that we bankroll some things on capital projects, but that's not recurring debt either. So anyway, I wanted you to know that as y'all deliberate this, to understand that there's some things out there, and we can have some conversations with the mayor and Director Bailey and Dr. Combs and maybe your counterparts in your districts for finance committee, about what that looks like on debt service. So anyway, that's my report, Mr. Chairman, unless there be questions.
Do we have any questions?
I just, again, new to the plate, we're communicating all the governments together with that. I know that some of those monies that we apply for, we've got to be able to, plead our case to, but they're in the loop with the whole.
I would assume, yeah, and I'm probably gonna play off that well. I assume we are having, and I know I've been part of some of the comments, and I think that the county commissioners are aware that there's a potential shortfall, whatever, and the question would come up is who's funding that shortfall, correct? Would it come out of our pot or the county? Those are discussions I would assume that have to happen between the mayor, WT, and as well as the commissioners, right? I mean, and we anticipate those to continue working together as a board with the commissioners and stuff to try to figure out this shortfall as each month comes along. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you all saw tonight, we just now got to a place where we know what the forecast is. We know what the GMP is.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
all of this, I know it seems like a long time ago, March 31st, 2023, and it's moved really fast and there's been a lot of things going on, but we haven't even got to a place to have those discussions yet, really, because we just got the number. And so we have to see, I think, we're 5% into the project they show. And so I think as we progress in the projects, let's see how insurance catches up with what's going on, and maybe we can we'll see that gap closing, or we'll see it getting further apart. But I think we got 18 months to watch it and to see how we're going to prepare for that. And it gives us 18 months to discuss with the county legislative body and everybody else how we're going to approach this.
Sounds good.
There's a list he was provided tonight to the insurance. Once they get that, they should be able to, in my opinion, should be able to forecast a lot faster on
Hope so.
a bigger percentage of the project.
Agreed. Hope so.
We had 2 or 3 email exchanges today,
Yeah.
I did between insurance and Lincoln, that we're already trying to bridge that gap, as of today.
Yeah, so
And
I
so-
like the progress, for sure. Do we have any other questions, any comments or anything on this? Mr. Stoddard, thank you.
Thank you.
Final order of business, Ms. Catherine Vaughn, you want to, I know, we're sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm just happy to introduce myself and my teachers before, the inevitable happens.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But hello, my name is Catherine Vaughn. I'm a resident of Covington. I've been teaching in Tipton County Schools for about a part of 20 years, which is crazy to think. And I'm the president of the Tipton County Education Association. I'm also the 2021 Tennessee Education Association Distinguished Educator of the Year and the winner of the 2024 Susan B. Anthony Award for my work improving teaching profession for women and girls. Through my work advocating for 6 weeks of paid parental leave for Tennessee teachers, which we have won and was signed into law. So, and I'm excited because I will actually get to use that. But tonight, the Tipton County Education Association wants to welcome our newly elected school board members. Just as we are committed to strengthening the partnership between families and our public schools, the Tipton County Education Association is committed to unlocking the power of partnership with our school board. We know our families love their public schools here in Tipton County, and we are committed to protecting public schools and ensuring that Tipton County is the best place in which to live, teach, and learn. Please know that our members are ready to be a resource to you as you advocate for the resources, policies, and practices that our students deserve. So, that was very quick. But thank you all so much. I'm so excited that you're here, and this has been fun.
Thank you.
I ask you if you have any questions, but I'm just nervous.
You're fine.
Roll that to next time.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
What's the
Thank
due date? We have to know.
Any day now. It's 27, but I'm hoping this weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. We have anything else, any order of business?
I've got one quick thing, I was gonna go into more detail, but I'll save most of the detail for the next meeting. I know I created a little chaos with the whole medical form, but it's come to my attention that on August 22nd, 11 a.m., Upper Middle School sent a robocall saying the form is not signed and turned in, students wouldn't have access to the nursing staff. And the nurse at Mumford Elementary said they will notify, parents, but it'll be a one-time consent, which to me is a blanket consent. They won't call for every single occurrence. And the biggest issue is straight from Skyward, grades for on-time returning of the medical form. The students got a 0 out of 100 because they haven't turned the form in. So I was gonna go into great detail. The law is horrible, and I'm sorry, the form is horrible. Based on what I know about law, it could be better. I'm gonna carry this over to the next thing. I think the grading, the failures, the robocalls and things needs to be addressed immediately. Somehow from the board, the principals of each school, because, I'm a board member, I still haven't turned mine in. I still haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet. And with kids potentially getting 0s for decisions of parents is not right. That definitely needs to be addressed, and there are still teachers and parents that are highly concerned, and I'm one of them. I'll go into greater detail in the October meeting, but I think this part of robocalls and grades, that's straight from Skyward.
What
That
school
need-
was that?
This is Brighton High School. So I hate Principal Croson left, because I would love to hear him speak on it. But yeah, healthcare return form on time, 8/22/24. 0 out of 100. So I don't know how this needs to be addressed to get it down to the school systems, but this is totally, completely uncalled for. It's just misdirection, miscommunication. So it needs to be straightened out ASAP, because these kids don't need to be failing for a healthcare form.
We've already addressed that. Number one, I agree. Number two, we've already addressed that with all the principals, and we'll be checking into that one specifically right after this meeting. 'Cause that's not supposed to happen. I mean, that's not, yeah. And then, the other one, what was the other one? You said Mumford Middle and then.
Yeah, Mumford Middle sent out a robocall at 11:00 a.m. on the, let me pull that back up real quick, I'm not trying to take up too much time, I know it's late. 11:00.
I think we spoke to Ms. Sherry about that when our nurse through Labon.
Okay.
And there was a nurse, I think that had something to do with that. There was a sub-nurse that is not, that's also been discussed.
Okay,
Both of those have been addressed.
okay,
But
we can work out the Skyward thing pretty quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, probably before I get home.
Okay, excellent, that's what I wanted to hear. So, And is there any way we can find a way to send out the FAQ? I know it's on the website, but it's at the very bottom of the website, and it does answer a lot of questions. Why it has not been distributed to parents through their kids or somehow like that. It's very informative, and I think it helps explain it. Is there any way we can have that distributed to?
Absolutely, Dr. Berg worked hard on that, we'd love to send that out.
Okay,
Yes,
excellent.
sir, and then even, you know, like the senator that was the
Yeah,
sponsor, he's on there too, and, you know, he and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and he said that the bill is a mess, and there are a number of things that they wanna address in the next session anyway. I think we put that on there as well too, so
It's on
hopefully we'll
there.
get some clarification after that as
Yeah.
well.
Thank you.
But, yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right, so we'll get some more clarification,
Yes,
discuss a
sir.
little bit more.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else on that right now? Mr. Dollar, you had
I had
one
one
thing?
other thing I missed in my report, we were talking about budgets, I needed to vote on something.
Okay.
It's in your packet, but I wanna bring that up, I was just reviewing my notes and noticed I'd skipped over it, and that's the internal school budgets that are submitted to this board every year. They're in your packets under internal school funds, and Tennessee Code annotated 49.2.110 and policy 2.9 relate to internal school budgets and student activity funds, and those budget submissions from each principal. Principal is the manager of the internal school general fund, and each year they submit a budget to this board to approve how they're gonna spend their money that year. And so we check those budgets to make sure they line up with policy and that they balance and all that. You'll see those copies in your packet. But my request tonight, Mr. Chairman, will be that there be a motion from the board to approve each principal's budget as submitted to the board in your packets for fiscal year 25.
Do we have a motion to approve these? We have a motion by Ms. Eubanks, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Edwards seconds, do we have any discussion on this? You'll see this in your folder. Yes, Mr. Gilly?
One reading? Is that all this takes?
For the internal school, yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Unopposed? No? Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
One last reminder, if you don't mind, Mr.
No,
Chair.
good.
So, Dr. Bird will say something to me if I don't say this. So remember, September 25th, if at all possible, there is a tour that she has set up for you. She and Mr. Withington have worked hard to set up a tour of our CTE programs. They're phenomenal, y'all. I'm just telling you, our CTE programs are awesome, and we really want you to be able to see them. So we've set those up for y'all and for the commissioners. So
They're awesome.
So if you could be there on the 25th, we would certainly appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Do we have a motion to, any other order of business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Gil, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, thank you.
It's still
Pictures, we do have pictures.